Hey folks, thanks for tuning in again. I've got Mark here, who is one of my star clients. Mark's an interesting guy who's putting in a lot of hard work, and well, he's training to climb more mountains because he's already climbing mountains. So I think he's got some interesting stories to tell and some wisdom to share. So, Mark, could you just tell us a little bit about life before we started working together?
Um, I predominantly came from a football kind of background. Um, Before this kind of coaching, I was involved in kind of like CrossFit. That would have been my kind of strength and conditioning kind of side of training. Um, during Before COVID, the gym was there, it was great, the community was great, enjoyed it. Then obviously COVID hit, the whole thing went on online, which worked for probably two-thirds of a lockdown. And then unfortunately the coach wasn't able to keep up the club and the club ended up closing. So after that, I kind of moved to looking at CrossFit HQ. So the workouts that they prescribed, what I kind of followed that as best I could. But what I found was, there was no feedback. There was no getting critiqued on the movements, that kind of thing. So I was finding myself getting small, sometimes kind of big injuries. So then it was purely from going too heavy or trying to do things too fast. And I was just finding myself stagnating, really. I wasn't progressing. And then kind of it got to the stage where I was just purely focused on playing football and, going hiking at the weekends and rock climbing. They were kind of my, what would you say, they're kind of my go-to training things, whereas I was doing very little actual strength and conditioning, kind of specific.
Yeah, cool.
So
So, what about some of your personal goals that you've been working towards?
personal goals, like long term, I'm kind of looking at I want to go climb higher mountains, so in the likes of Himalayas. I've I hiked up Kilimanjaro in Tanzania in 2018, which was pretty cool. It kind of was an exposure to high altitude kind of climbing. Um, Wanted to see how my body would react to that and how it would cope carrying weight, that kind of thing for multiple days, which was all good. Um, and from there, it's been kind of going into the Alps, climbing a few places in the Alps in Europe, uh, with the goal of progressing towards getting to the Himalayas eventually. So I'm looking at the minute at maybe the likes of Island Peak or the Bush East, and then onwards to maybe Amadablam, which is more technical. So that'd be
I'm
kind of
familiar.
what my long term, yeah, that'd be my long term kind of goals.
Awesome. That's a whole other world, those real high altitude mountains. Like I've been at high altitude up in the Himalayas, but uh my interests aren't in technical climbing. I'm a hiker. I'm a backpacker. I like being up there and exploring, but man, good on you for going up something like Ama Dablam.
It'll be something I'm really looking forward to eventually getting to get it
Amazing.
ticked off the list.
So tell us a little bit about how things are now. So now that you've got some structured training and since we've been working together, what's life like?
It's improved big time. Like you said, structure, having that structure for each week, this is what you're going to do on this day. This is how you're going to progress on from the last time you did it. Um, Having true coach to look back on when I remember to put the weights and the reps onto it. Um, it's great looking back and seeing your progress. It's like I was talking to you about with the strict press. We've always struggled with anything overhead kind of, and it's nice to see over time those those weights and reps going up and still being able to keep the technique right. So having a structure, being able to see how far you've come, and being able to send on the likes of videos to get critique to make sure I'm doing it right and that I'm not going to end up injuring myself and hitting another setback.
Yeah, absolutely. The worst possible scenario is getting injured in training when we're trying to train you to not get injured on mountains. And I definitely feel you on the overhead press. That's been my nemesis for years. I've just got long, skinny arms. It's a hard one.
Yeah, join the club.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe we should start a club. So why don't you give us an idea of what your favorite part of the process is?
Part of the process so far has been being able to push myself. You know, when I was following the HQ stuff and getting no feedback or no anything, um, it was always kind of the back of your mind going, all right, am I doing this correctly now enough that I can push on and go heavier or more reps, you know? And with the feedback you get from yourself, it definitely gears you up when you're going in, going, all right, I know I can go slightly heavier or I can push out more reps and I know I'm doing things properly. And then, like the training block I did before New Zealand was pretty much completely different to the training block I did after. And then those kind of maintaining workouts with the bands that you gave me for the time I was away. It felt like it wasn't uh going back. It was maintaining it and then came back, new training block. Feels like it's pushed on even again from when I first started back in 22.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad that you mentioned the maintenance phase while you're in New Zealand because it's hard enough to get people to do stuff when they're abroad and traveling, but you do a good job of that, and it sets you up to hit the next training block and the next training goal without being behind. So that's pretty cool. So what would you say to someone who might have been in a similar situation or might need some support to hit their whatever mountain climbing goals or personal goals, training goals, but doesn't really know where to look or who to trust? Like, how do you find someone? How do you know who to listen to?
Um, I'll just use myself as the example. I the mutual friend that we have, he shared one of your stories on social media, and that I was like, oh, maybe this guy might be what I'm kind of looking to get a coach to provide me with. So I looked into it, and everything seemed like it was, yeah, you know, this is the guy's setup. It seems like it would suit me. I chatted to that particular friend, and he said, yeah, absolutely. The guy is a wealth of knowledge. He's into mountain climbing as well, hiking. So absolutely. So what I'd say to someone is, if you're looking for someone to trust and someone to uh possibly go on board with and work with, definitely ask around, ask your friends, ask other people, read online testimonials, have a look, do your research, and then take a chance and go for it. Like as some of the other client interviews they said, biggest step is starting. So just go and start. Give it a go. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But if you do your research, you probably have a good idea before you ever start whether it's going to work or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I think almost everyone has said is talk to your friends, see what they're doing, talk to the people that are having success, ask who they're working with, ask what they're doing, and listen to that advice. Like word of mouth is powerful. And if you know someone having success or someone who's doing something you want to do, just reach out and ask, like, hey man, what are you doing? How do I get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I did. Like I was looking on social media for ages, but people can put a spin on anything you want. Whereas if you see something and you know somebody, go ask them, what about this person? What about that person? What about this system? Would that work? And get their feedback and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So before I let you get back to all the things you do. Do you have any words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
Um, Probably the biggest one is, and I've learned it through rock climbing and mountain climbing, is baby steps. You know, you see people that are all jacked up, getting to a rock face, and they're all arms to try to get up a 60-meter cliff. They're dead halfway through. You know, they're busted and they're coming back down. Whereas, and everybody's guilty of it. Everyone starting out was guilty. I 100% was guilty of it until the coach told me, you need to work on smaller steps, and that way you won't burn out as quick. And as soon as I started applying that, 100%, I started doing climbs that I was getting halfway up and being exhausted. All of a sudden, these climbs were becoming achievable. I was getting to the top, and I was like, yeah, baby steps. So I applied to pretty much everything. If you're starting something new, if you're starting something challenging, just take your time. If you get a knockback or if you make a mistake, you'll learn from it. But don't let it completely knock all your confidence out of it. Just learn from it. Take a step back. Think about what went wrong. What could you do better? And then go again. And don't try and, what's that saying? Don't run before you can walk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the lessons that comes with that is patience.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Too many people do want to run before they can walk, and the missing thing there is patience and learning that those baby steps are required.
Firm believer in it.
Awesome, man. Well, Mark, I really appreciate you taking the time, and I think there's a lot of good nuggets of wisdom in your story, and I hope that other people enjoy it and will get some value from it. So thanks again.
Cheers.